Welcome to the Did You Know Quilting Show. I'm Christina Whitney, and today's question is, did you know that there are some simple steps that you can use to help prep your quilt top to have it long-armed? So I'm going to cover 4 different topics today, I guess you could say, or tips. The first one I'm going to talk about is stay stitching. So let me pull over an example here. So this mini has already had some stay stitching on it. And what it is I just go around the outside of the entire quilt top and I stitch about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the quilt. Okay, so you can't really see it in the white there, but it actually, oh, yep, it actually is there. So you might ask, why take the time to do that extra step? Well, anytime that I have piecing on the edge of my quilt, I like to have that stay stitching because it holds those seams. It also helps with the bias. So if we look at this quilt here, this one does not have stay stitching done on it. And you can see how much I can stretch that. And I don't know if you see, but I'm actually popping that seam open as I'm pulling on it. So if we're loading on a long arm and we're pulling just a little bit, try to get things where we want them to be, there's a good possibility that we're going to be popping those seams open. Also stretching when there's the bias. So I love having stay stitching all the way around the edge of the quilt. And again, it's about about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the quilt, so that when I go back and I put my binding on, it'll cover it up anyway. So sometimes I don't even use matching thread color. I just use whatever happens to be in the machine at that moment, which generally is matching because I just finished piecing it. Okay, as I'm doing my stay stitching, I'm doing it so that the wrong side is up. That way I can see which way those seams are going to make sure I don't accidentally flip them over. And I do have a 1/4 inch foot on, but you can use whatever foot you want. And I'm not using matching thread because this is what color happened to be on my machine. Now I'm just stitching along the edge. Again, trying to keep all those seams nice and flat where they need to be. So one other thing I'm thinking about as I'm doing the stay stitching is if I know that all of the seams are going to be going one direction and I don't want to have to sit there and try to make sure that they're going to go through straight, I'll sometimes turn it over to make sure that it's going to just go through smoothly and not have to fight the direction of the press seams. Okay, that has been stay stitched. Now, as I pull on them, it's not going to pop those seams open and it's not going to stretch quite as much as without that stay stitching. Now, one other thing that you might be asking is what stitch length am I using? I just use my regular stitch length. I have tried doing it with a basting stitch and I didn't have as good of results. So I prefer just whatever I'm doing my piecing with is what I use for the stay stitching. Okay, so try that out on your next quilt. Now, I talked about how when I pulled that, I kind of popped some of those seams open. Another thing that you need to pay attention to is the seams throughout the center of the quilt. Sometimes we will do like a scant 1/4 inch or even smaller if we're really struggling because we don't have quite enough fabric. And sometimes those seams will pop open, and that can be really, really dangerous if you're long arming and you get that a foot caught in there or whatever, it's going to rip it. So always check to make sure that all of the seams are secure. And another thing that I want to talk about is the pressing. So I'm not here to say, okay, you have to press to the light side, you have to press to the dark side, you have to press open. That's up to you. But I do really encourage people to be as consistent as possible. So especially if you're going to be doing stitch in the ditch. Let me find an example here. Okay, so let me pull this up where you can see. So this seam right here, you can see it is pressed to this side over here, but then down here it's pressed to this side, and then again it's pressed to this side. Now part of the problem is that there's a lot of buildup there because of that's where a bunch of points come together. But if I were trying to do a stitch in the ditch along that seam, it's going to be going all over the place. So always try to keep the seams consistent, like all of it pressed one way or the other. Or if you have it pressed open, that's your choice as well. Since we are talking about pressing, yes, I do like to press to the dark, but it's not always possible. So this brings me down to our next little tip. If you have contrasting colors on your quilt top, you're going to want to make sure, and you guys are looking at the back side of this, you want to make sure that you don't have any strings that are showing, especially from the dark to the light. So let me find a good example to show you here. Okay, so here is one section where I did have to press down to the light side. And if you look closely, you can see I've got these black threads all along here that are going to show through the white fabric. So I like to just take some snippers and just try to snip those little extra pieces off. And you can do your best. They're still going to pop back, but if you can get the majority of them off, you're going to be off to a much better start. Okay, so those are my tips for prepping your quilt top for long arming, and hopefully you will get to see better results. Have fun quilting.